Right, we're on the theme of paradise, and the first thing we're going to look at is, as I said, as I do every time, is what's one of the means of entering paradise. The Prophet ﷺ said, the people of paradise are three. This is in a hadith in Muslim, where he said that the first person, one of the people of paradise is Dhul Sultanin Muqsit Mutasaddiq Muwaffaq. He said it is someone who possesses authority and is just. So they're in a position of power and an authority, and we're all in positions of power and authority. Anyone we have below us, that means we're in a position of power and authority, whether we be a parent, whether we be a teacher, or whether we be even someone, not just children or someone younger than us, but even in our job, if we have we're working over someone. The Prophet ﷺ told us and commanded us to make sure that we be just and mutasaddiq, and we be charitable. And so if we have any excess, anything we can give, we give. And this is, I've learnt this in life. People don't work for money. It doesn't really matter the wage. I mean, to some extent it does. But ideally, what do people want in their job, and how you keep them in their job? If you make them feel valued. That's the reality. You can't throw your weight around and just think your staff are going to stay with you. They want to feel like they are appreciated. And so there's always this dilemma in work, isn't it? That if I train this person up, he's going to end up going somewhere else and setting his own business up. So I remember a friend of mine who's a jeweller. He trained this guy up, he showed him everything. And guess what the guy did? He opened his own jewellers right next to his brothers. So, but the point is that you've got to be conscious of this. And how do I win this? How do I keep this person? This person's valuable, so I need to make sure that I am keeping a good relationship with them. And generally, not always the case, you can't guarantee anything in life, but you can't technique Allah, is that they'll stay with you if they feel valued, because they will feel loyalty. As I said, that's a generalization, and in the end you have to let go sometimes and say maybe they might go, and I've got to accept that. But this is important. There's someone who's in a position of authority, they be just and they be charitable, and that's a muwaffaq. And this is the other thing, which is interesting here. So you apply justice, you apply to be just, and you apply to be charitable, but at the same time it's down to the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Beyond that, you just leave your trust to Allah and ask Him to give you success. He said this is one of the people of paradise that has that attitude in their life. The second person is rajulun rahimun raqiqul qalb. He says a man who is compassionate and has a soft heart for who? For any relative or any other Muslim. He said this is another person who will be blessed with paradise. So look at how you have your interactions with family members and your interactions with other people. Do you have a softness towards them? Obviously we have to protect ourselves, and we have to have healthy boundaries with people, not be exploited, but at the same time we be compassionate with people and we be understanding with one another. So this is the second person who will be a person of paradise. The third person is رَجْلٌ عَفِيفٌ مُتَعَفِّفٌ ذُو عِيَالٍ. He says it's a man who is chaste. He's chaste and he has family. So this is another important thing, is a person of paradise is that he has desires. He has the desire to have, he has desires, but he makes sure he does it within the boundaries of family. And he has it with the intention that I have this desire and I'm going to channel it towards something that's actually beneficial for myself, beneficial for the community. As I said, this is really important that we as adults and parents and people in the community, that we instill in our youth, we prepare them for marriage. If our young lads aren't directed in their minds, we don't direct them, we don't mentor them. So when they hit puberty, we don't mentor them and take them through and have a direct relationship with them, they're going to go wild. And they're going to be a burden on our community because they don't have any direction. This is always one of the greatest lessons I learned in life. I was with a person and he was his marriage was a complete mess. And he was a GP. I said, you're a GP? You've studied medicine. You can't even get your within a few months of the marriage, he was broken down completely. And I said, how can you not do it? He says, when I studied medicine, I had mentors taking me through the whole process. No one mentored me in this. And I said, you've got a point there. He basically put me in my place. And that's the problem. We just marry them off. They know what to do. Marriage is one of the most complicated things you will ever face. Relationship with another person is one of the most complicated things in your life. And we don't prepare anyone for it. We just expect we work it out. And now we live in a society that's even more selfish, so we're even more out of touch with how to attune to another person. They need tools. So young lads, you've got sexual desire, no problem. But you've got to prepare to direct that sexual desire in a way that is going to be beneficial for you in the long term, not just in short term. And unfortunately, a lot of time in our communities, the elders sometimes think, he's old, he's young, cello, But with our daughters, we come down on them like a ton of bricks because they're about our honour now. But with our lads, cello, I was young as well. Yeah, at least break the cycle and give them the opportunity not to make the mistakes you made. Okay, you say, Buddha, I made mistakes. I made successes. I was successful in some areas. I could make money, I tell you that. Okay, and I managed it, but in other areas I made mistakes. I want you to not make mistakes, and I'm going to tell you how I made a mistake and what I've learned from that. This is really important that we have a relationship with our youngsters and really speak to them and be real about them, because we want to get them to paradise. That's the reality. And if we don't direct them, they're going to go wild, and that's not going to help themselves. And they've got to, then when they get older and they realise, my God, I made mistakes, it's going to be really hard to change those habits. And so I always say, break that transgenerational mistakes. Don't just keep making the same, next generation just gets in a cycle. Rather, learn and impart them so they don't have to make so many mistakes. So this is a person of paradise. So what are we going to speak about today? What theme today? We're going to speak about the children of paradise. The children of paradise, who are they? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّاتِهِمْ وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Those who believed, had firm belief, and their progeny followed them. And it's the dhurriya, the word here, رَبِّ جَعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ dhurriyyati. This particular word dhurriya is beautiful. It means to be spread out and scattered. So the idea is there's one of you, and then from you comes many. Like a flower produces all these seeds, and it produces so many more just from one flower. But it doesn't just mean necessarily your immediate progeny, your children. It means generation after generation after generation. So you have a legacy, we have a legacy that can and that's why I say change give your children a platform that's stronger than what you had, so that their generation can eat better even more, and you get all that reward. As long as all they're performing righteous deeds, it's all coming back on us. And so those who believed and their progeny followed them wholeheartedly, be imanin with. It's really interesting here. As I said, when we analyze the Quran, Allah says usually al-iman. He says with a faith, which is really interesting. Why Allah sometimes uses al-iman and sometimes He uses iman, which means the first one just means faith in general. This means a specific wondrous faith. Bi imanin alhaqna bihim. We join them with them. So if for example, say your children are greater, they achieve things greater than you did, they say we want our dads with us. Or vice versa. If we manage to achieve great things, we have the hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will say he's my child, and they would and they're righteous. At least they had the basic thing, they had faith. This is the most important thing. And they followed them with faith. It's not enough that they're just our children. They have to have faith. And that's why we can have so many shortcomings, but the one thing we never let go of is what? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You don't understand the power of a parent's words. Like, my parents didn't give me a lot of advice in life, but they gave me some. And one I don't know why, both my parents said, you dare get a credit card. They said, do not get a credit card. I didn't listen to my parents in anything. I've never had a credit card. It's amazing. Is that if you do say something to your children, it sits there. They might make mistakes, but long term it gets in there. And so the one thing is, you say, Buddha, don't let go of that La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's going to get you to paradise if you hold on to that on the day you die. That's the last words you want to. You don't understand when a mum and a dad says that to their children, that has an impact on them. And so this is the most important thing. They follow them wholeheartedly in the faith. We will join them, because this isn't just benefiting them, it's benefiting you as well. Who knows who's going to be higher in the sight of? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمْلِهِمْ شَيْءٍ. And they don't lose out from any of their acts. So you say, they're going to take no, I'm not going to give them my good acts. No, it's not about they're going to give you good acts. So there you're in paradise, and you want them to join them. Well, they have to have the same rank, so I'm going to have to give some of my good deeds to them to get them here. No. You just out of the fadl of Allah, because you had that sincerity, Allah will get and you love your family. This is a key thing, love as well. This sincere love in your heart for your children. Allah doesn't want to disappoint you in paradise, and so He enables them to be with you. Anything. But, and then it's very beautiful here. He shifts it. Every man will only achieve. Every man is bound by his own actions, though. So it's a reminder: don't rely on it, though. Because we say, on the day of judgment, my Buddha is a good boy, or my dad was a great man. That's a big mistake people make, isn't it? It's my dad was a great man. He will intercede for me on the day of Yom Qiyamah. Anyone who has that attitude needs to be fearful, because if you just become relaxed and self-content, it's not going to benefit us. We have shortcomings. We have hope in our parents, and we have hope in the people of our family, and we use it to live up to something great, rather than just think and just benefit from others because my parents are something special. And so this is it talks about children here being with him in the paradise. Who are these children, though? Will they be children in paradise? These are many questions that I'm going to try to answer in this talk. So, in terms of, we have a number of things here. First of all, is that it's mentioned, there are hadith mentioning that our children who passed away before they reach puberty, they will benefit us in the next life. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he saw him with his son. And the Prophet ﷺ said, do you love him? And he says, indeed I do. And he said to him, may Allah love you just as you love him. Okay, that love that you have for him, may Allah have love for you just like you have love for him. One day, he saw the man again and his son wasn't there. He says, where is your son? He said, he passed away. Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so that son that passed away before puberty, on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, that boy will be waiting, Dad, come in this door. Because you had love for me, I'm going to enter you into paradise. Another one is that the woman who's in a state of postnatal bleeding, she gave birth, but her child passed away, so a stillborn. She said that child, this is in a hadith, that her child will drag her from his umbilical cord to paradise. So that there will be a connection still to that mother, and he will basically hold on to my umbilical cord, I will pull you into paradise. And so these are important when people go through grief, and we accept the grief. But the one thing is what we do, we say we don't question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have faith, we say Allah knows best. We go through those emotions and those experiences, but we be careful what we say about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we can do that, Allah will gift us that gift on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. When we're in a bad situation, those children will come and save us. Now, those children, there was one more hadith about this as well. See if I can find it. Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ saw Ibrahim with the Prophet ﷺ on the day on Laylatul Qadr, when he went on the Isra Mi'raj, he saw Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam with the Muslim children and the non-Muslim children in paradise. This is a hadith of Bukhari. So that all the children that pass away, and this is something we're going to discuss afterwards, what happens to the children that pass away before they reach puberty. But the strongest opinion is whether they be Muslim or whether they be non-Muslim, they will be in the garden. And whilst we're waiting for us on the day of Yom Al-Qiyamah, Sayyidina Ibrahim, and in another narration, Sarah, his wife, will be taking care of them around a tree in paradise. But the interesting thing is, what happens to those children when they enter paradise? Do they stay children? Because there's some narrations that say the children who passed away before puberty who were Muslim, and there are other opinions that the children who passed away before puberty and they weren't Muslim, they will be the servants of the people in paradise. But this is a weak opinion. The strongest opinion is that the children, because we have a hadith here, that the children, whoever, the Prophet ﷺ, this is in Tirmidhi, whoever dies from the people of the garden, whether they be young or whether they be old, they will enter paradise at the age of 33 years of age. And they will all be the age. So those children, on the actual day of resurrection, they will still be young and they will intercede for us. But once they come into the garden, there will be a tree just outside of the gardens, the walls of the garden, and they will bathe in one, and they will be cleansed of all their sins and impurities, and they will bathe in the next one, and they will be given new bodies. So the children or the adults, they wash in that, and they'll come, and everyone will look around the age of 33, and they'll all enter paradise. So someone was old, they will go into that pool, and they will come out with a completely different body. And then the children, they will go in as children, but when they wash, they will come out as adults. And so this is the strongest opinion, that the children who passed away in this life, they will end up being adults in paradise at the age of 33. So who are those children then? That's the question. Allah says, thank you very much, Allah says, يطوف عليهم, we read it in Surah Waqi'ah, يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون, that children, eternal youths. Wildan is the plural of walid, and walid can be a boy or a girl. There'll be these young youths of paradise that will go round the sabiqun, the people who are the highest station of paradise, and they will be serving them all sorts as they recline on couches. Who are these children? The strongest opinion is that they are created from paradise. Allah describes them just as He describes the maidens of paradise. They're created. They appear as lu'lu' maknoon. They will be concealed, like concealed pearls, i.e., pure, untainted, not touched by the sun, very, very light. And the maidens of paradise and the children are almost transparent. So the Prophet ﷺ described the maidens of paradise. You can see the bones under their skin. You think, ew! You can see the bones of their skin. The reason of this is because they're angelic creatures that have been given the forms of men. So they're almost transparent because of that. Because angels are created from light, they have a transparent nature. So the inhabitants of the paradise that were created for us, to serve us, they will have this sort of transparent, lucid sort of appearance. They will have form, but at the same time they will be almost transparent at the same time to show how pure they are. And these children, why children? This is what's so interesting. Why children? And some people, they have dirty minds. They think, look, these Muslims, they have children. What are they doing with them in paradise? They misunderstand the point. What's the point Allah's mentioned children in paradise? It's because children, it's about their enthusiasm. A young child, Allah's described them in two ways. They're ghilman or they're wildan. A ghilman means they're like excitable. Because when when your child is about between the ages of maybe 2 up to maybe about 11, they're really enthusiastic with their parents, aren't they? You tell them to do something and they're like, Mummy, I want to do that, or Daddy, I want to do that. And you give them a responsibility and they get really excited. But then when you give your child, when he reaches 13, 14 something to do, what does he do? Oh God, completely changes. So it's that youthful, vital energy that we lose. Once we reach puberty, we turn into this, I remember this comedy when there was this young youthful boy, and then when he becomes a teenager, he just goes into the kitchen and suddenly hits puberty, and he comes out and his hair becomes all this long and dishevelled, and he's going, "Oh Dad, I hate you." They called him Kevin. I don't know if anyone remembers the comedy. And he goes, what happened to my putter? He's become a monster. I want the other one back. But they have to go through that phase. That phase is that now they're becoming adult and they're having to become more independent and push away from the parents. Now, so Allah says wildan. Why does He describe them as wildan? Because they're obedient. They're youths. They run around with excitement, wanting to serve everybody. And then the ghilman is that enthusiasm. So when He mentions Allah wildan, the walid, it's because of wanting to obey and wanting to follow out every command. And the ghilman is that excitement that the children have. So these children, the Prophet ﷺ says, I am the first of the people that will come out on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, when we're sent forth, and I will address them, and they will they will listen to me, and I am their leader, and I will give them good tidings when they feel despair. On the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Prophet ﷺ, everyone will be looking to him for hope. And he says, I will have the banner of praise in my hand, and I will have the keys of paradise in my hands. The Prophet ﷺ, so everyone will be looking to him. And he says 1,000 servants will be serving around him that look like pearls. He says on the day of they will, like a king goes into the palace. He said the Prophet will have thousands of these youths just accompanying him, his entourage, as he enters into the paradise. This is a hadith that's related by Tirmidhi. The question is, what's the fate of children? This is a topic. This is a question that usually arises. I remember when I was in Keighley once, this woman came up to me, a non-Muslim woman, and her child died. Her child was disabled completely. Like the child was born, and it was completely out of it. Didn't have any sense of intellect. And she came up to me. It's really interesting. She didn't. We had this sort of tent where we were having an Islamic awareness, and she came up to me. She was from a Catholic background, and she says, "What does Islam say about children that are like my child?" And so she was seeking some sort of peace in her heart, that this child, even when it passes away, there's some wisdom in why my child's going through. Because the problem is, in a lot of communities, they think if I'm born with a child that's disabled, it's because I am cursed, isn't it? They have that attitude sometimes, as if like I'm cursed, and so I must have done something. Someone must have done some jadoo or some nazar or something like that. Instead of seeing this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if I can be content in this, Allah will gift me something even greater. And so she asked me, and I said to her, children that pass away before puberty, they go to the garden without any sort of test or any sort of trial. And she went away. She just completely face broke out with smiling, and she went away completely content. And so it's interesting that we have this concern. And so there are many, many different opinions about this. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, from the verse of Quran that we mentioned previously, that every person's responsible for their deed, he says that they died before puberty, they're not responsible, so that must mean that they all go to paradise. So this was Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, his opinion. There is no Muslim amongst the people the Prophet ﷺ said, there is no Muslim amongst the people who loses 3 children before puberty, except Allah enters into the garden by His compassion for them. So if you lose 3 children, and remember in those days, losing children was normal. We take it for granted that our children, like my wife's pregnant, she's going to give birth, and you have this whole idea for their future. In the past, give it 100 years ago, they wouldn't even know if the child or the mother is going to survive. Basically, that everyone's hearts are in their mouths, thinking when the woman's in labour, thinking, I hope they're praying for their survival. Now we just take it for granted. But then people lost many, many of their children. And so the Prophet ﷺ, whoever loses 3 children before puberty, Allah will enter him into the garden because of them. One day, the Prophet ﷺ was addressing the women. After that, because the women that came to the Prophet ﷺ saying, "You always addressing the men." So these women, these are the first Islamic feminists. Okay, they say, "Well, you always give time to the men. What about us?" And so the Prophet ﷺ said, "I'm going to give you a specific day where just for you ladies, and you get to ask me any questions you want." And the Prophet ﷺ said, if a woman loses 3 children, she will have they will be a veil between them, between her and the fire. So if a woman loses 3 children, they will protect them. They will act as a barrier between her and the fire. One of the women said, "What about 2 children?" So I always wanted to get in there. He says 2 as well. So we were hoping, what about 1? And that's our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if we lose 1 child, that child will be a veil for us against for the hellfire. When his son Ibrahim alayhi salam passed away, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is in Hadith al-Bukhari, said he shall have a wet nurse in paradise. There will be a woman taking care of my Ibrahim in the paradise. So that's another possibility, that in the paradise, our children who pass away for puberty, they will be taken care of. And we saw that Ibrahim and Sarah will be taking care of them. And the scholar said, if he's going to be a barrier for him from the hellfire, that must mean that the child's in paradise as well, if he's going to be a barrier as well. The Prophet ﷺ said, the young children who pass away will be like the water in... there's a difference of opinion. He says, da'amis al-jannah. He says there's a difference of opinion what this da'amis, and even the Sahaba asked about what this da'amis are. He says the young of the Muslims will be the da'amis of Jannah. And what da'amis, some say, is the little insects on the water. So there's so many. You know when you walk across you stand by a lake in the summer, and you see all those insects. This is another point of reflection. Remember, I try to stress this, is that when we see things in nature, we direct them towards something of the religion. So he says, see all these little insects that fly in, so many. He says they're going to be in paradise. The children who passed away will be those of paradise. Meaning what? There'll be so many. Most of the people of paradise will be those children that passed away. He says, يَتَلَقَّى أَحَدُهُمْ. He says they will meet one of their father or their parents. This is beautiful. And he will take him by the garb or his hand, just like I'm taking you. So he grabs someone by the sleeve here. So imagine that. He says your child has passed. Imagine you do that to someone. Their child has passed away, and you grab them by the cuff here. He said, "Come with me." And they say, "What are you doing?" I'm just come with me. Pull that. See what I just did there? He says your child's going to do the same thing with you on the day of Yom Qiyamah. He's going to take you by the sleeve and pull you into paradise. Think what impact that's going to have on that person when they hear that. These things are very important. And so the Prophet ﷺ said he's going to, just like I take you there, he says he's not going to let you go. That's really important, those words, because you feel hopeless. Your child has passed away. He says that child is going to hold on to you, and that child is not even going to let you go until he enters you into the gates of paradise. Not only him and you, you and him. That's the implication, isn't it? And then that child will become an adult. What do we want for our children? We have this dream that they're going to become old and they're going to, achieve so much in paradise. That's what we see for all of our children, whether they pass away or whether they grow old. It says Ibrahim and Sarah will take care of them until they send. Yeah, so we said that. So those children that passed away, they're being taken care of. Now, this is interesting though. We have some hadith that seem to suggest that the children won't go to paradise. So one time a child passed away, and Aisha radiallahu anha made a comment. She said, Tuba lahum. She said, the Tuba, we spoke about this earlier, the tree of Tuba, this blessed tree of paradise is for him. He did not do even a bad deed. He's guaranteed paradise. And the Prophet ﷺ said, is that so, Aisha? He said, Allah created some people for paradise and He created some people for the hell. What I take from this is that we should never assert anyone's in paradise unless Allah subhanahu. We have hope in Allah, but we can never assert that people are in paradise. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't like. He didn't like people to say, oh, he's definitely in paradise. Oh, he is. He says this is not, because why? Because we're asserting something that we don't have knowledge of. Allah, if we don't have certainty about something, we would say, my hope is, but I'm not going to ever assert something because Allah, He's the most knowing and I'm not. So it's the attitude that's most important about these sorts of things. And then the children of the non-Muslims, we have hadith, some that suggest that the Prophet ﷺ said they will be with their parents. There's another opinion where he refrained. Where the Prophet ﷺ refrained from mentioning. We have other hadith that the Prophet asserts that they're in paradise, i.e. the children of the non-Muslims. Why? This is interesting. They say the strongest opinion is that the Prophet ﷺ had stages in his mission. If he didn't receive any knowledge At first he made an assertion. They weren't Muslim, so they're in the hellfire. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he was being educated by Sayyidina Jibreel through his mission, and then he learnt from Allah that he shouldn't assert unless he has knowledge. And we see that him teaching that to his Sahaba as well, with the example with Aisha radiallahu anha. And then the third thing, then he was given knowledge. So once the Prophet ﷺ was given knowledge, then he said it. And so the strongest opinion is that even the non-Muslim children, they will be in the garden. The Prophet ﷺ said, every child is born on a fitra. And the fitra is that potential. If you were to hone it and nurture it, they would naturally be Muslim, and they would naturally fulfill their potential. But the parents, we end up, and all parents do damage to their children. We can't escape that. Okay, no parent is perfect. And we don't hold, we say our parents did what they could with us, with the capacity they had, and says, but we've got to still do the work with ourselves. And we've still got to do the work with the children, our own children as well. We've got to learn from the mistakes, just as we learn from the benefits and the blessings that they brought us. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he asked his Lord not to punish the children of his ummah, of mankind whatsoever. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I made this dua to Allah that he not punish any of the children. See the rahmah of the Prophet ﷺ. He was so compassionate towards the innocent. Why? Because Allah says, Alam yajidaka yatiman fa'awa. Did he not make you an orphan? So fa'awa, so you protect the orphans as well. So the Prophet ﷺ knows what it's like to lose your parents. He knows what it's like to struggle. He knows what it's like to look down upon. And so he has compassion for them as well. And so he made dua for them, and he said, Allah granted me that none of the children would ever go to hell. A woman asked the Prophet ﷺ, who is in the garden, O Messenger of Allah? He says, the prophets, the martyrs, and the newborns. Those children, well, it says mawlud, those are born, meaning the young children. We said, some said they were the servants of the people of the garden, but this is a weak opinion, as I've said. And then we have another hadith, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبَعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, we will never punish a people until we send a messenger. So these children never received the message because they weren't at the age of be able to discernment, and so they go to paradise. And what's interesting here is, in the janazah prayer, what's the dua? How are we doing, Afaq? 38. Right, okay. So we wrap up on this point, is that what's the dua we make in janazah for children? Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan waj'alhu lana ajran wa dhukhran waj'alhu lana shafi'an wa mushaffa'a. Oh Allah, make him or her Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan, means a forerunner, meaning they're going to be there for us on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah to protect us, as we've mentioned here. So that child that passed away, oh Allah, make them for us, someone that's there for us. Look at that. We're actually looking to our children to be there for us. Usually we think our children, you don't know anything. You stand on the back line there. We don't give credence to our children a lot of the time. They're going to be those that pass away before puberty. They're going to be the ones looking after us on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allahumma ja'alhu lana faratan wa ja'alhu lana ajran, and make him a reward for us. Notice the content. Look, we're asking for us, that child for us. We're not making dua for the child. Ajran wa dhukhran, and a store, like a treasure for us, something there to be there for us. وَجَعَلْهُ لَنَا شَافِعًا. He's a shafi', an intercessor for him, and he's granted the permission to intercede for us. So they say we don't make dua. This is a very, very interesting point. It says we don't make dua for our children because they don't need our du'as, because we know that they are in paradise. Rather, we ask that they benefit us. So when there's a janazah for the child, the dua should be focused on the parents, and that child be granted the permission to benefit that. And that's very important, that we say our children, they benefit us. And this is an issue that's, a lot of, especially converts have a lot of concern about this. My parents who died non-Muslims and all these sorts of things, can I pray for them? Yeah, have you heard this issue that comes up? Am I allowed to make dua for them? Now, what we say here is, there's two principles that I've highlighted here today. First of all, if we don't have knowledge, we can't assert anything. So we can't say that they went to paradise. Okay? We can't assert that they go to hell either. We say non-Muslims don't go to paradise, and Muslims go to paradise, and some of the Muslims will go to hell, Allah protect us, and then be taken out. But in terms of individuals, we don't know. I can't say I'm going to paradise, you're going to paradise. That's not in our knowledge. We leave the knowledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a group, yes. We say the general position, they don't. But in terms of individuals, we can't condemn anyone, and because we don't have the knowledge, and we can't assert either. And so if we don't have knowledge of something, if we're making dua for someone, then we're asserting something. Now, we know if someone died on La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, we know that they will eventually go to paradise. If they died on La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, so we make dua for them. But the way I try to explain it, because it's very upsetting if you say I can't make... We know one thing, they can definitely go to their graves and visit them. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as I said, I've got the advantage to go. I'm not going to... That's too long a conversation. But the point here is, what I'm making is that, and this is the way I explain it, if they are in paradise, they don't need your dua. Because the children, just like our children who passed away before puberty, they don't need our duas. In fact, they're going to benefit us. So we leave that knowledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And that's the most important thing. We don't make dua for them, but we have hope in Allah, and but at the same time we have a respect for Allah's command, and we don't assert things. And so ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we see all our beloved ones in the next life, and that they be an intercessor for us. And if we are righteous, we be intercessor for them. If we have shortcomings, you guys, all of us here, if we see one another in paradise and we're in the lower station, let me up. Okay? Yeah. That's my I'm doing this. I say that's my deal that's our deal, yeah? If I'm up there, I'll help you out. Okay? If you're up there, you help me out. And that's the thing, we're all here for one another. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we be there for one another on that day. Bismillah.